I have a special treat for you today on the Business Your Way podcast, and that is actually a roundtable that my friend Steph Walker hosted. And as we were in the middle of the conversation, and it was going so well, and I was really enjoying everybody's questions and perspective, and I was learning and having fun, I was like, I wonder if they would let me host this on the podcast. And when we wrapped up, they said yes. So I wanted to highlight this conversation that we were able to have. It will be, I think, heartwarming in the way that good conversations always are. And it will also call you forth into a little more visibility, potentially. It might make you want to be seen. So that's not a bad idea. All right, so I'm just gonna hand the mic back to myself and these two other lovely ladies and let you listen in. All right, thanks for being here.
Welcome, everyone. I'm glad that you're here. My name is Steph. I run Clarity Web Design Studio. I'm based in Lethbridge, Alberta. I used to be in Nova Scotia. This is part of my roundtable series where we're bringing in people who knows things that I don't, and so that you can walk away with something really useful. Today, we're talking about your voice. This is not necessarily your brand voice or your writing voice. This is your actual voice. And maybe those should be the same, but we'll see. So this is about the voice that comes through on a podcast or from a stage specifically. Just as a little housekeeping, this is being recorded. The replay will be public. So if you have to drop, you won't miss it. You'll get the replay. And we do have a number of people that have signed up that are going to be watching the replay specifically. So there's a lot of content out there right now that all sounds the same. I'm sure most of us here have seen it. Maybe some of us have been making some of it because it happens. One of the things that still cuts through is hearing a real person talk through their thinking. And so that's what we're going to get into a little bit today. So it's a quick little why am I doing this? I'm a website person. Hosting a conversation about podcasting and speaking that I know very little about. So the connection is that when someone hears from you on a mic or from a stage and they're interested, they're going to go looking for you. They land on your website, chances are, and that's the moment when that visibility either turns into a real lead or leaks away. So from my perspective, the spoken voice and the website are two ends of the same thing. So my work is the landing place, hopefully, for everything that Caryn and Kimberly are going to talk about today. So that's why this topic matters to me and why I wanted to bring in these two in particular to cover the parts that they know a lot better than I do. It's a casual conversation. There's no slides. There's no big presentation. My assistant wasn't here. I wasn't able to be here today to help, but if you can put any questions that you have in the chat as we go, and I'll do my best to pull them in. So first, I would like to quickly introduce my two guests. First is Caryn Gillen. Caryn has been coaching for more than 15 years, and she works with coaches and founders who want their business to feel as good as their coaching does. She came to this by an interesting route. Is it okay for me to share some more details, Caryn?
Yeah.
She's a former commercial fisher person, and therapist with a master's in counseling psychology. So she understands the human side of this work at a level that most people probably don't. She also hosts a podcast called Coach Business, which is well over 200 episodes deep, I think. Mm-hmm. And she has therefore spent a lot of time talking on a mic, talking through exactly the kind of thinking that we're going to get into today, which makes her the perfect person to start us off. And my second guest is Kimberly Lyall. Kimberly is a keynote speaker and a leadership facilitator. She's a Governor General Award winner and a YWCA Woman of Distinction. And her work runs on a framework she calls solutionary leadership, which is about turning hard situations into forward momentum. She speaks for a living. She knows what it takes to hold a room and actually say something that lands, not just fill the time or check a box. So when we get into the stage side of things today, that is where Kimberly lives. So Caryn and Kimberly, thank you both for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yay. So I'd like to start with the why. I want to understand what actually happens when someone hears you instead of reading you. So when someone hears you talk through your thinking instead of reading it, what shifts in how they relate to you? And Caryn, if we can start with you, that sort of connection angle.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me is sometimes I don't know what I think until I speak.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes when I'm in a situation like this, I hear a new idea from myself. And so, of course, my audience is probably having the same experience. The other thing I think is really interesting is when I get feedback about my writing, it's that it sounds like you speak, but people wouldn't know that if they first didn't hear my voice and hear how I talk, right? So and I think what that creates is congruence, which improves the sales process. If I feel the same when I speak as I do when I write, then that's going to create more trust immediately.
Beautiful. I like that a lot. Kimberly, what would you say?
Yes. I think when I'm on stage, it's a two-way conversation, actually, which sounds interesting because I'm delivering the keynote, but in the audience, I can read their body language. I can see when it's resonating with people. I can feel the energy in the room. So if you think about anytime you have a conversation with a good friend and you let go of the, maybe the shell that we sometimes have, and you're just being vulnerable and you're being real, and that's the kind of experience that I try to create on stage. And so people can really resonate with what I'm saying. They can read about leadership in a textbook if they want. When I tell a story, when I'm expressing why something worked or why something didn't and how I felt at the moment, they're feeling it and they're thinking about their own situation. And we're connecting, we're building a relationship, and it just makes everything land so much more strongly. It's really fun.
So it's like, what did you call it? Not a mask. What did you call it?
Shell.
A shell. Oh yeah. That's really neat. So can you think of, either one of you, can you think of a specific moment? Like Caryn, you said when people give you that feedback, but is there a specific moment you can think of that showed you that shift in how they're relating to you?
I mean, one memory stands out, and this was back when I was first learning copywriting, actually, is I had people coming to sales calls quoting me back to me.
Oh.
And I thought that was really interesting. Like, there's something, first of all, copywriting is so important, and it's not just writing, right? It is a different skill.
100%.
But that was like, oh, there's a special tool or skill here. And it's like, it's really powerful. And I want to be smart in how I use it.
What can I ask? What kinds of things they would say back to you? Like, did they know that they were saying it back, or did you just know, like you recognize it?
No, they would say like when you wrote this, like, so it's when you're writing like with what they're saying in their mind. So, I mean, part of it is like knowing our customer really well, but also having that experience and ability to share in the way that people speak. Not good writing, but good thinking in word form.
I love that. That's really cool. I can't think of a moment when someone is, oh yeah, no, that has happened to me a little bit. So yeah, that's, but I love that. I love that as a recognition. I think that's really neat. Kim, what about, Kim, can I call you Kim?
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Kimberly and I have a personal friendship, so I sometimes mix my personas. Mix up my shells. Can you think of a specific moment, like say when you're on stage, where you can recognize that shift in how they're relating to you? Like you said that you read their body language. Is that the primary?
It's part of that, and it's just the energy. You can tell when people are honed in and when they're not. I've always approached speaking as being just brutally honest. My first speaking engagement was for high school kids, and I was scared to death at the time. It was not something I chose. It was something a mentor set up for me. And I thought, how am I going to get them to listen to me? And I thought the kids don't want to be talked to. They want to be engaged with. So I thought, I'm going to share with them my hardest stories, my most brutal experiences, and what I learned from it. And I'm also going to share with them my best experiences and what that's taught me. Because I think we all can relate to those feelings of discomfort, those feelings of I don't know what I'm doing, those feelings, especially as a kid, right?
Oh yeah.
And it worked so well. That's just what I've continued doing ever since. And I found that it doesn't matter what your age is, what your experience is. We've all had challenges. I often have people in my audience both laughing and crying. And I don't set out to make them cry, but I'm telling a story where I'm being really vulnerable. I'm sometimes feeling it myself. As Caryn said, sometimes things come out of my mouth I didn't plan, right? But in the moment, I'm sensing this is what this audience needs to hear. They need to see another human who is feeling things, who is facing the same struggles with the world that they are, and who's trying to just figure it out, and who doesn't have all the answers, but has a couple answers. And that's what I'm trying to share. And so I see people crying, I see people laughing, and then same as Caryn, they come up to me afterwards and they say, when you said this, I was thinking about this, that happened to me, and now it makes sense. It's so validating.
That's beautiful and terrifying.
It is.
Both for the teenager piece, but also just for that massively vulnerable, because you have to put yourself out there for people to be able to find something to connect with, right?
You have to create the space where you can have those conversations, and psychological safety. In some ways, sometimes you do it differently than others, and sometimes you can't do it. So it's a matter of gauging what does your audience need and how do I serve them best, and then you go in with that thought.
Oh, so it's a very fluid kind of a thing, which I've never really thought about that, because I don't do a lot of it. But so like you're potentially changing what you're saying.
Yes,
it's certainly not following a script.
I wouldn't say a script. I would say, and Caryn, I'd be interested if you do the same for your podcast. I go in, whoever's hired me has said, here's our theme, here's what we're dealing with. And I say, okay, here's the presentation I'm going to give you. Here are some of the key points I'm going to make. And I have certain stories that I'll pull in and to make those points. But no, you can't, if you try to memorize it, if you just try to say it doesn't work, it doesn't feel right. People can't relate to it because you're not being human and real in the moment. And so, yeah, there's been times I have a story where I'll tell it quite softly because that's what the room needs. Other times I bring in humor. Other times I've almost gotten fierce, like, when, you've all felt this way. That's what that audience needs to relate to it. And so it's a two-way conversation, just like you would anyone else you'd have.
So it's that difference between talking at them.
Yes.
Well, I think you said talking to them before and engaging. I think I probably would have said talking at them, because I'm certainly familiar with talking at my own teenagers, versus like saying things that they're actually going to retain.
Yes.
Like 30% of what I'm saying probably. But Caryn, is that a similar, would you say that that's similar for you? Like that when you're actually having these conversations?
It makes me think about almost being in a three-way conversation. There's like what I came to say, and like on my podcast, I don't script. I use some bullets. Like I want to hit this. Sometimes I hit it, sometimes I don't. Same thing when I do like, leadership facilitation. It's here's this general outline, but there's me, and then there's them, and then there's what happens in the room. Yeah. And if you forget the third audience member of like, what's the energy here? What's happening? What's the thing that came in that none of us expected? You have to hold space for that. And there's no room to edit. So like written, we can do a lot of editing. We can get the words just right. We can fine tune for 16 hours. But when you're speaking, it's not that. It's more of a wild animal, which I think is really fun. And like part of what makes it, like what Kimberly said, you could go read a leadership book, or you can go be with the wild animal, which you're going to get more out of one.
Some of us might prefer the safety of the reading, but yeah, that's really, that is a super interesting way of looking at it. And I wonder, I had the closest thing I could think of was a friend of mine from Nova Scotia was doing an experiment for a while on LinkedIn where, we have this tendency to over edit the things that we're putting out. And so he did a whole series where he said, it's one take and that's what I'm going to post. Doesn't matter if I go 5 minutes over. Mm-hmm. Or whatever the thing was. And I was like, wow, that takes a lot of guts, but until you do it, you're not going to have any sense of A, how hard it might be, or B, how you might get better at it. So I think that's a really interesting approach too. So then that kind of leads me to the starting piece. So I think like what you've both said around why you would want to do this, to speak publicly, whether it's and speaking live, maybe even, and for that conversation and that connection with your audience, whether it's an audience of one. Would it be an audience of one, Caryn? Is that what you would think when you're having your conversation?
Yeah, the thing I like to remember is like when I'm writing a newsletter or I'm speaking into a podcast, it's me, maybe the guest, and then it's you listening potentially with me in your ears.
Yeah.
Or so in your car. So it is a really intimate audience. It's always an audience of one, even if there are 100 other people also listening as an audience of one.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. Okay, so then the case for doing it is obviously really strong. So I would imagine that the hard part for most people would be the starting. So let's go there. And I think that a lot of us get stuck on the starting when it feels like a really big leap or scary or, whatever. So maybe they feel like they should be doing podcasts or they should be speaking and they just don't. So for you both, for someone who knows or thinks that they should be doing this for whatever reason, but keeps putting it off, what would you say is the smallest but real first step? And Kimberly, would you like to start us off on that?
Sure. This is interesting because I've spoken for years. I've been on stages for almost 30 years now, which is crazy when I think about it. But when I started posting on social media, that scared the heck out of me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh,
right. You want to be
interesting.
You want to be perfect. You want that take to look good. Exactly what you said. Your friend who said one take and do it, right?
Yeah.
And I've had to learn how to. Okay, you might have messy hair. You might say a few ums in the thing. Just do it. And the more you do it, the more freeing it actually gets. It gets less scary because you do it and you find out, oh, the world's not going to fall apart. Nobody's going on and commenting in the comments, you suck, and laughing at you, right?
Yeah.
And even if they did, I mean, who cares? I've learned that the less perfect we are, the more people can connect to us because perfect people are intimidating. And frankly, there are no perfect people. So even on stage, like once I started posting on social media and getting more comfortable with it being messy, but just doing it, I actually got better on stage because yes. I still practice. I still, again, go in there with knowing what it is that I'm wanting to give to the audience because I'm there to serve them, and knowing what stories I'm probably going to pull in and having some sense of, if I have a half hour, an hour, I need to stay within that window for the event organizer. But I go off script a lot more because I'm more comfortable with who I am and what I'm saying because, again, I'm just relating to people.
Yeah.
So
I love that they connected for you.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
So yeah, I think I roundabout way of answering your question, like what's one small thing to start? I would just say start with your social media. Just put something up that's raw, that's a little unfiltered, without worrying too much about making it perfect. And you'll find out that people will relate to that. My best posts have been my messiest ones. They're the ones that have been the best ones.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Caryn, what would you say would be that smallest but real first step?
I think two things, and I think Kimberly kind of said it the same but different, but like, what's the thing in your bones that you can go and talk about? Like, because if I always know what's at the heart of the thing behind what I'm saying, I can get lost and find my way back. I can go on a tangent and be like, oh, right, I was talking about that one thing, and get myself back to that place. So before you hit record on anything, it's nice to know like what's at the base and the foundation of what I'm delivering so that if I end up in left field, I know how to get back to home plate. And the other thing is what I see people do a lot is think, oh, I should start a podcast or, do my signature talk or fill in the blank. And then they think about what it looks like for someone who's had a podcast for 5 years to do theirs. And they've got reels going out with clips that have captions and images, and they've got their podcast on video to YouTube, and they've got an email that goes out about their podcast, and they've got all this stuff. And that will keep people from doing anything because it seems like I need to do everything now, but I don't. So I think it's really important to remember that my podcast is on its like 5th name. It's renamed since your introduction. Now it's called Business Your Way. Now that just happened last week.
Yes.
But like you have to give yourself permission to edit, to change your mind, to add layers when you need them. Because if the point is connection, and for the folks I'm usually talking to, the point of speaking is to generate clients, for people to feel your energy so they know I'm going to work with them. And now is the time. That means I just need to speak. I don't need to be perfect or have a reel or have my branding colors just right or have the name of my podcast correct. None of that stuff matters.
Yeah. I love that. So that's fascinating to me because I think a lot of the women that I talk to, we tend to over-engineer and overcomplicate things so much. And with all of these tools that are available now, it makes it feel like building that marketing engine to promote whatever your idea is, whether it's a podcast or a keynote or, well, I'm not sure what keynote can, but something like whatever the piece of content is that you've made really super proud of, or that you haven't made it yet because you feel like you have to build this whole marketing engine behind it when you don't even know if it's going to land yet.
Right.
Like if it's going to make any sort of a connection. Yeah. And I love that it has to evolve as well, because of course it's going to evolve because your business is evolving just like you are. So it wouldn't make sense from that perspective, to build this great big fancy airplane. And then, you know, you run it, you fly it once and go, oh, I actually need this airplane to look totally different.
Yeah.
Completely different size or run on different fuel, you know, or whatever that analogy would be.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I really like that. And I wonder if, would there be anything around like guidance around where you put that first experiment that either of you would also suggest?
Go ahead.
Well, I just first want to say what Caryn was talking about. As speakers, we do the same thing. I've changed my business brand 3 times in the last 4 years, right? Because you test it out, you think you know what it is, and then you find out, okay, it either doesn't resonate or it wasn't quite what I wanted to do. I think we all have these layers that when we start out, again, we're a little nervous, so we're trying to be palatable to everybody. And the more you do it, the more you start to realize, no, my core message is actually this. And you strip away some of those layers and you are more confident in that core message, which maybe doesn't work for everybody, but it works for the people that you're actually trying to attract, right? So that resonated so much because we do the same thing. Oh, if you don't have your website, your speaker sheets and your video reels and blah, 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 can you actually get hired? Yes, you can. When you go to the right client and you say, this is what I'm here to do and how can I help you, right? So, sorry, what was your question, Steph?
Honestly, I lost track as well. That was so great. I'm not sure, but it was around
there is what the question was. Yes. I think there's a number of ways of doing it. From a speaker's perspective, what we will often hear is just get on a stage, right? Like get out there and speak to people because you'll learn so much doing it. And what Caryn had said earlier about like know what your message is, that's so critical. You know, people are afraid to speak in public. It's still one of the number one fears. And I often say to people, whatever you love, whatever you're passionate about, whatever you know super well, speak about that. But the second part of that is then who cares? Like find the audience who's also going to care what's in it for them. And if you match those things together, then you're going to be good. So I started, I taught at a youth camp. I was sponsored by a Lions Club and I spoke at hundreds of Lions Clubs and Rotary Clubs and really learned how to work with an audience and communicate my message in those environments for free, right? Just giving to my audience. But it was a way to test, to learn, to get seen. And then those people knew people who then recommended me to other people who recommended, right? And you just start to build. So in the speaking world, that's how you do it. And I would imagine, Caryn, there's probably something similar.
Yeah. Same. I think wherever it's the easiest for you. So if it feels easy to do Instagram Live, I think you have to have 1,000 followers now to do that. Or if it feels easy to be on Facebook, be there. If it feels easy to start a podcast and just do audio and don't do video, then do that. But get your reps in. Like I was thinking about, there's a lot of stages between here and your TED Talk. Yes. Right? Like no speaker comes out of the gate and is like, and then I got the TED Talk. It's like, no, there were 100 stages, 200, 300 that nobody saw before they ended up there.
Yeah. Oh, and I love that. I love that for a lot of reasons. I actually wrote a newsletter on an article on LinkedIn last month that was talking about one of my clients. One of my favorite quotes was that she's the 7-year overnight success because there's all of this work that went into, like, there were so many reps that she's put in before that sort of public recognition started to happen. And she's like, yeah, no, this is not overnight luck. You know, I've been busting my butt for a really long time. And also I had someone else on a roundtable a couple of years ago who quoted somebody else who I've forgotten now, but it was something to do with that number of reps. It was specifically around podcast, practicing on a podcast. It was something like 300 episodes before you hit your stride.
Good. I'll be there soon.
Like, don't expect perfection. Because why would? It's brand new. Like you have to sort of work your way through it. And then the only way you're going to get there is by actually doing it.
And there's that, there's a real struggle between, I want to be good enough for everyone to pay attention and I'm not, and I don't want to do it because I'm not good enough for people to pay attention. And like the only way you get through that is through the reps. Like, and agility, being willing to change. Like Kimberly just said, she's changed her branding 3 times in the last 4 years or whatever it was. Like I thought I was going to be a sales coach up until about 2 weeks ago when I did 4 reels in a row. And on the 4th one, I was like, that's not it. I
Oh,
can't
that's
like that. I
interesting.
can't do that. But the only reason I knew that is because I chose to speak up 4 times in 4 different ways, and I taught myself something, and I did it close enough together that I could really feel it. And I think that's something too, is like show up and speak and keep speaking so that you learn what you need to learn as fast as you can learn it to get where you're going.
Oh, what a neat little insight. Because yeah, I could see that, because if you're trying something new and you do like a focused work day, but then you don't pick it back up again for a few months, you kind of
You
have to
can feel
redo
it.
it all over again.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Kim, do you have anything else that you want to add for that?
Well, just what struck me with what Caryn said, it's this fear of failure that we have. Like, if I don't come out the gate perfect, and if I don't know what I'm doing, then okay, I've made a mistake. And the greatest skill you can have, leadership or otherwise, is being flexible, being adaptable, being willing to grow and change. I mean, we're not the same people we were 10 years ago, and we shouldn't be the same people 10 years from now that we are now. So why would we expect to right out the gate, okay, this is what I'm doing, and we stick with it for the rest of our lives? It's not a failure to change. I love that Caryn tried it, went 4 times and went, actually, this is not for me. That's amazing. Anyone that we work with, we would celebrate them figuring that out fast, and then going into, okay, what is it that I really am good at, that I want to do, that I love, that I'm going to be brilliant at, right? It's not failure. It's just evolution and growth.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's really neat. So what about from the angle? So I love this talk about like the evolution, because I think that that's a piece that we don't give ourselves enough grace for, and time. But I think there's also the angle that the person that you're speaking to 5 years ago or last year is not the same person that they were 5 years ago, last year. So the way that you're delivering your message, I mean, you've evolved, but your target person has probably evolved also. So do you think that, because when you're having these conversations directly, do you think that you have a different perspective on how that's evolving and changing than you would if you were relying more on just the written communication?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, it's a relationship, right? We're building relationships when we speak with people, and it might be a short one, but we're still engaging with them. So it's a two-way communication. Absolutely. I mean, look at how much the world has changed in the last 5 years. We're all different. Yeah. And so if you want to stay current in your sector, whatever it is, if you want to stay relevant, and if you want people to continue to hire you because you have something to offer that meets their needs now, having a conversation like this, speaking, right, from a stage or on a podcast where you're engaging with people and you're finding out what resonates and you're finding out what the changes are, it's a really great way to do that.
Yeah, that's really neat. I would say, like, the one of the other things that another podcast person had recommended in an earlier roundtable was around, when you're creating any piece of content, to have like a little sticky note on your computer. I love this too. Have a little sticky note of that person on your computer or somewhere nearby, so that anything that you're writing is directed to that person, because it's so easy to get kind of scattered, and I certainly do. Like, there's so many things that I want to share, and then I get really like, woo, and then I forget that person doesn't actually care about that specific angle, that specific piece of information. I wonder if that feels like it's something that also kind of ties in, like keeping whatever the thing that you like, once you find that thing that brings you joy, or whatever, and the platform, then also keeping that end listener, or that the other audience in mind. Is that something that you have to keep in mind also, or you've been doing it long enough now, you just know?
I think yes. Yes, and for some reason, this is bringing up AI in my mind, and the fact that
I know it's always
AI is always historical, but we are evolutionary. And so there's something for me that happens faster and is far more creative when it's coming out of me versus recycling old stuff.
Yeah.
And I think we also need to keep up with our people. Like, it's not just that we're evolving and they're evolving, but like we gotta keep up with them. And I think we do that by thinking. Thinking about them, thinking about us, thinking about the world, thinking about what matters, thinking about the themes that we're noticing in all the work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I laugh at that, but I think that is a really good insight, because I think we're so busy trying to make all of the things and produce and
Yeah, so
serve,
much.
yeah, it is so much. And there's so much external pressure and internal pressure that I think we do forget to take that step back and go, why do they care?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, why does it matter?
Yeah, the so what, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what if your plane is really shiny? Who cares? What would you say about, sorry, I lost my spot in my notes. What would you say people get wrong when they are getting started? Like say, I wrote down when they're trying to sound impressive instead of sounding like themselves, but we don't necessarily have to go to that impressive thing, but that I think that is kind of ties into that fear that you were both talking about before, the fear of not being impressive maybe. So what would you say, is there something that people get wrong when you're doing this?
I'm going to jump in and say it's a mixture of things. It comes from that fear, for sure. This idea that you have to be perfect for people to respect you or like you. Even that, we all want people to like us, but honestly, you really should want them to respect you, right? And so I've seen speakers who, again, have memorized their speech, have put in a bunch of impressive stuff to prove to the audience that they know what they're talking about, like all their degrees and all their, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the audience doesn't really care about that. What they care about is, are you going to say something that matters to me that's going to help me see my life differently or do something differently in my life? And in this age of AI, people are looking for reality, real connection more than ever. So anyone can now generate a whole bunch of information and memorize it and get up on a stage and deliver it, but it's not real. And we're craving that real. We're craving connection. We're craving someone who has the battle scars of having gone through something, failed, is willing to talk about it, because then I can say, me too. Oh my gosh, I'm not alone. I'm not a loser. I didn't think anyone else felt this way. Yeah. Right. So I think what people get wrong is this idea that you have to be perfect. You have to know all the answers. It's actually the opposite. It's, again, what do you know well? What have you learned? What might help somebody else? What's a story you can share that makes it memorable? We all love stories, right? We all grew up reading stories that helps us understand concepts, and then we can look at our own lives differently and move forward from that.
Very nice. Caryn, anything from you there?
Same thing, different words. Just like if we're thinking about ourselves, we're centering the wrong person.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's so hard too, right? Like, especially when you're just getting started. Because I would say from a website perspective, I see a lot of that as well, where the website is designed around what the business owner says they need. And it doesn't actually factor in who that end user is and what their context is coming into the experience on the website. So it's easy to say, oh, like we're doing here, but it is actually, it's not easy to maintain that. I think it's easy to get tangled up in our own heads.
And when you have the least experience, you have to be the most willing to be wrong, because you're guessing at your audience instead of knowing your audience. But you don't get to know your audience until you guess enough and then get it right enough that you get to work with them and know them. And then it becomes easier because you know them better at the same time as your skill is increasing. So that's why they say entrepreneurship isn't for the faint of heart. Like, it is a school.
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But and if you don't have that conversation, whether it's live or not, but I will say from the conversational piece, like when you're collecting, say, like client testimonials or reviews, I get a much richer draft testimonial from the conversation, rather than like saying, here's your blank piece of paper, have at her, fill it out, what was awesome. Whereas if I can set up a conversation, if that works for the person, then that often does end up with a much richer sort of thing. Most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time. When you were starting out, either of you, what did you think you needed that turned out not to matter? And let's not do the being perfect thing, because I think we've talked about that a couple of times. And I think that is probably the biggest holdup for a lot of folks. But is there anything else that comes to mind when you're thinking back to who that person was when you started? And Kimberly, that might be like going to the teenagers. Yikes. Or Caryn, it might be that very first iteration of your podcast. Or is that where you started, Caryn? Did you start
I mean, I
writing for the
started so
podcast?
many years before that. Yeah, we're thinking way back. I mean, when I started in online business, we had like 3% of the tools we have access to now. So it was a little less distracting.
Yeah.
But I really thought I needed a name and a logo, and you don't need either of those things.
Awesome. What did you need instead?
I needed clients. So we don't have a
Nice,
business
yeah.
if we don't have clients. Like the one thing I would say, you do need to sell. And in order to sell, I think you do need to say stuff. You need to speak up so people have something to bounce off of and understand like, oh, I want to bring this person into my life and walk with them a while. If you don't say anything, no one's ever going to come in.
I love that, bringing someone in and walking with them for a while. That was lovely. Yeah, I like that. Kimberly, what about you when you started?
Yes.
Back.
I think I'll move forward a little bit, like 13 years ago, because when I started, I was also working full time. So this wasn't my primary gig, but 13 years ago, I went all in on consulting and speaking. And again, I didn't intend to. I just was in between jobs, and someone came to me and said, "Hey, I know what you do. Would you go in on this consulting gig with me?" And suddenly I'm consulting. And I think in both cases, what Caryn said was right. You have this idea that, oh, I need a logo, I need a location, I need like all the trappings, all the physical things that say I'm a business person, right? When really what you need is you need the confidence in yourself to do the thing. You need relationships, like people who know what you do and are willing to hire you. And yeah, you need to do the work. You need to be willing to put yourself out there, which is so much harder. It's so easy to go get a business card made and get someone to design a logo and feel like, here I am, right? Yeah. Way easier to do that than make a sales call.
For sure. Yeah, it's easier to get AI to build you a website. You're like, I'm done.
Yes.
It's all going to happen by magic. It's going to be amazing.
On that, Steph, I'm going to give you a shout out because you are working with me on rebuilding my website for the last several months. And I've been the holdup on that. But when we started, I was like, okay, it's all got to go out at once or else it can't. Like it's all the pages have to be done. And you were like, you don't actually need all that. Like, let's just get your homepage with this information and some contact information. The rest we'll figure out as we go. And I was like, I don't know. And since we've done that, I've gotten great business that I am 100% sure is because I have a really great website that's not even fully up yet.
Oh, I'm happy to hear that.
That's
that
awesome.
was an unnecessary plug, but I appreciate that.
It's true, right? So again,
it's a little bit of that, like, there's so much, especially, and I would say actually, especially around 10, 15 years ago, there was that very like, oh, you're starting a business, here's what you need. And it was that list of stuff, whether you needed it or not, it's something else. Because even back then they were like, oh, you gotta be on Facebook. Well, you gotta have a website and social media. You gotta do this and 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 this. And you're like, oh my God, your head's spinning.
Yeah.
So these days, I think it's a lot more about the intentionality of it. And because you can't be genuine and authentic if you're scattered across 100 different things, especially if you're just copy pasting the same thing to each one of those places, because everybody's engaging with it differently, depending on where you're at. So thank you for the plug, Kimberly. That was cute, but unnecessary, but that was fun. Yeah, no, that's cool. But I also think it's easier to look at what is necessary after you've been doing it for a while versus when you're just starting out. Like, I'm not sure if anybody's on the call right now or is going to be watching the replay, but I think the pressures that startups. Caryn, do you deal with a lot of startups in your coaching?
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, I like from my perspective, I would have said that startups have a different set of pressure to sort of deal with, because it's a lot more of the shoulds. You should do this, you should do this, you should do this, but they don't always have the clarity to be able to say, this is what I'm doing. These are my ideal people to work with. This is, like they're still working through a lot of that. So I'm not sure, like it's easy to say, you don't need.
It's hard to know what you don't need until you've tried and flopped at a few things.
Yeah.
And you really have to put the flops in to understand, here's why this over here is powerful for me. And some people strike gold on the first try, but most of us don't.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think most of us definitely.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of snake oil out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. That's really neat. So, okay. So let's say you've done that first scary thing, whatever that thing is. You got on the mic, you got on the stage, whatever. So now what? Because visibility on its own doesn't really go anywhere, right? Doesn't really do much. And there is certainly, you've both talked about that relationship and that engagement sort of piece. So because there's a difference, I think we can all agree, between being seen and being remembered, what I would like to talk next about what turns that one-time appearance or listening experience or whatever into an actual relationship. It's that what's next? What do you do from here a little bit? Say after a podcast, what actually turns a listener into a relationship rather than just that one-time bit of exposure? Caryn, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I think what you want to know first is what's the point of the activity I'm doing, podcasting, speaking, or whatever. So like if the point of this having a podcast is to get clients, that is a different ask than if it's to get other podcast interviews, than if it's to get speaking gigs, right? So your ultimate goal will inform what you want to do next. And then I think we get to train people and how to interact with us, like remind them like, hey, you can reach out to me. So I say like, I'm Caryn Gillen everywhere because my name's weird to spell. So you can just DM me. Like it's always me. There's no other one. And I want to talk to you. So I'm like asking for replies in my email. I'm asking people, will you share this episode with a friend who it would land for? If you're listening and you thought of someone, will you share this with them? Because for me, I like having a podcast because I think of it as a nurture for the people I already work with and as a great client generation tool when the right people land on it. So if I have a client who's listening and then they think of their coach friend or their business owner friend, and then they share an episode, that's all I need to do. I don't need to have 10,000 listeners a week, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I get 10 new subscribers, even in a 2-month period, that's pretty good for me for how the podcast works to bring in clients. So I want to know what I'm doing and then what is the call to action for people to move that thing forward in the way I want to move it forward. So I just try to be really available and conversational and here. I'm not trying to pretend I'm like unreachable and too busy because I'm not. I'm very reachable. I want to be in connection and communication with people.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah, that's beautiful. I think I like that intentionality of it and that being very deliberate about. It's almost like you're setting some guardrails around the thing.
I don't have to do it all.
Balloon. Yeah, because we overcomplicate, we overthink, we expect the one thing to do 150 different things that maybe it's not well suited to do. And I think it does make it easier, right? When you can kind of scale that back and say, no, this is the purpose of this specific channel.
Yeah. And I think some people get caught in the like, well, actually, what if my podcast got picked up and like I won an award or so-and-so found it? And then we've completely lost the plot on why we started and what it's for. It's like, no, if we can stay really connected to that intention, I think everything works better and probably faster.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I like that. Because I have certainly had a lot of conversations over the years, actually not so much lately, but it used to be like people would want to set up the website and then monetize it.
Right.
Which usually back in the day meant like having ads, showing ads on it. And I'd be like, why?
Yeah.
You people make me so angry when I'm on your website and all I can see is ads. And that was 15, 10 or 15
Yeah.
years.
And it's only gotten wilder.
So much better now. Yeah. Kimberly, for you, that transition to the relationship from hearing you talk to, so rather than just that one bit of exposure, to becoming that relationship, what would that look like for your people?
Yeah, it's a little different because I'm hired to speak. So that is my income stream. In addition to I do consult and facilitate as well. But I look at it as multiple relationships along the way. So whoever has hired me, I'm their partner in making whatever their event is successful, right? So I'm part of their team. And so I'm working with them on up to the event to make sure I know what are their goals, what are their audience. I always connect with them a week or two prior to the event. Has anything changed? Just making sure that they're clear when I get on site. The AV team is now my partnership as well, right? We're all in this together. We're all trying to make a great event. During the event, I actually try to stay for the full event if I can. A lot of speakers, just because if you're hired to go multiple places, you can. You fly in, you do your thing, and you leave. But as much as possible, I try to stay as long as I can on site. so that I'm forming relationships with the audience before I get on stage and after, right? If I'm in the room with them ahead of time, I get to hear, I get a feel for who they are much better than even the prep work that I did. So I can adjust. And then afterwards, I've had people come to me 2 days after I spoke and say, I've really been thinking about what you said here, and this is what resonated, or I was hoping I got the chance to talk to you privately. So I'll do that. At the end of my speech, I have a QR code that pops up on the screen, and people can give me feedback and join my newsletter list, which I just want to point out, I've only started sending a newsletter out 3 months ago. So again, this is a thing that you're supposed to do, but I just couldn't figure it out until now. So that's fine.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say too, treat your relationship seriously. Like if you're going to build a relationship with someone after they've heard you speak, it can't just be I'm talking to you on the show floor and that's it. Right. I mean, if they follow up with you and connect on LinkedIn or send messages, you really do want to invest some energy in it, which is not easy. But it has to be intentional, which is, again, what Caryn said, it's gotta be real. It's gotta be genuine.
Yeah. And I wonder do you think that it's easier in a way to build these relationships because we're service-based businesses? So like we are genuinely serving people. And if we come at it with that mindset of providing a service, rather than just saying what's in it for me.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's helping it, or do you think it's hindering?
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think we can get really good at being helpful and responsive and relatable and nice, but that's not necessarily going to generate clients. So you do want to know, like, is this a conversation that is leading me towards helping you in some paid capacity? Are you trying to be my new friend? Like, because I got a lot of friends. Right? We have to be sure that it makes sense. And that it could go there someday. And I'd play a very long game with all of that. I like humans, so that's pretty easy to do. But I think there are a lot of us service providers who can get pretty lost in just being really nice.
Yeah. Well, it's like you said earlier with your podcast, Caryn, when you were talking about like you lose the plot. I think it's a little bit like that too and maybe that's sort of a women-owned business, kind of maybe more of a problem, I would probably think, than for some of our male counterparts. This whole because there's so much built up in our heads around what the business is versus who we are as an individual, which is probably playing into this. So that's really interesting. So I feel like you both said something about a follow-up move after the initial sort of a thing. So is there a piece within, for both of you, is there a piece in there that you see most people skipping? Like maybe Kimberly, that might be like other speakers, or Caryn, maybe like other podcasters. Like maybe it's something that shows that they've lost the plot, or maybe it's just like a missed opportunity like they haven't thought of.
I would say most of us as speakers will do the follow-up with who hired us, right? We'll do a debrief, we'll send a thank you card, things like that. I don't know that a lot of speakers go to the whole event like I tried to do. That's something that I find is a little unique because it's time, right? If I'm hired to speak for an hour, but I'm going to stay for 3 days, those days could be used to be generating business elsewhere. But for me, it's been a really successful approach. And I feel genuine doing it. Like, I feel like, again, I'm not just popping in and popping out. Good luck, right? I mean, I truly care about your event and I care about your people and I want to be available to them. So that's one piece I find that works for me.
Yeah. Caryn,
I think with podcasting, and it's the same with speaking, is it's who are the people to the right and the left of me. So like, actually, when this conversation's over, I'm going to be like, hey, Steph, are you guys okay if I share this whole thing on my podcast? Can I highlight both of you on my podcast with my audience in a different way?
Yes.
Right. And so it's like, how do we support the people who are around us? So who are the other speakers at the event? When I'm interviewed on somebody else's podcast, I can ask the question, hey, what kind of guests are you looking for? Because who do I already know? A lot of people who podcast. Who do you already know, Kimberly? A lot of people who speak. You're like, I've got someone, they can be ready last minute. I can be the hero because I know a bunch of people who are really good at this. I've seen them do it because I do stick around at the conference, right? So I think all the time our best referral partners are those of us who stay in relationship with each other.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's like that little your personal Rolodex.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I don't know. I was in a business event one day. We were doing an exercise where we were doing. Everybody at the table had to come up with a list of people who were in our network that we thought the other people at the table might benefit from, so that we could provide we could go around the table and say, this is what someone would say, this is what I'm working on, and then the other people at the table could go, I've got a book publisher. I know somebody who does this. I know somebody who does podcasting. I know someone, like you were just saying. And it was like an active relationship, not building, but like reminder, that we actually do have a lot of people, like you were just saying, Caryn, there's a lot of people by this stage of the game. We actually probably know more people than we realize. And most of them are really smart, really good at what they do. And I think that relationship piece it's part of that authenticity, and it's that thing that AI is never going to touch. So it's just not capable. So what else? As far as there was something else that one of you touched on, and I didn't write it down. It was something about the link between the exposure and the relationship. So for you, Caryn, that thing, it's like another conversation, right? After the podcast. So then, but someone would be actively reaching out to you. Can you walk us through what does that sort of look like?
So if I'm a guest on someone else's show, I'll just be like, so what kind of guests are you looking for? What kind of guests are really great for your audience? Because I also have so many clients. I love to refer my clients to other podcasts. I think that's a really nice, because who knows them better than the coach they're currently working with, or former clients too. So I just like to make a little time, because I know some people who run shows that are all interview, they're constantly in the scramble of finding a guest that's going to make sense and have good audio and have all those things. And you can be one of the filters for that for them.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's nice. So it would be, would it vary depending on the person? Would it be like an email sort of thing, or do you do like voice notes? I know some people
I do it right when they hit stop record.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So I don't go anywhere. I'm just right there.
Yeah.
Or I have a rule in my business and kind of in my life that's never stifle a generous urge. So if I am like, oh, I think so-and-so, there's something there for them, I'll just go introduce them out of the blue.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. See, that's that relationship building.
Yeah. Oh, I like that a lot. What about you, Kimberly? What would be okay, so just to full disclosure, I have had a conversation with Kimberly a little bit about what the follow-up piece is, offline. We talked about this before. Because we were working on the website, and it was really fascinating to me because so many of us over-engineer and over automate a lot of these things. So one of the things that I see a lot of when people come to me with websites is they want the website to do a lot of things, and they often skip over that relationship build piece because they think that just because the website can send out a form or whatever the thing is, that it should. And what Kimberly had mentioned, I'm going to put you on the spot here. You're welcome.
Okay.
But it was about that next step where it was something to do, and you can refresh my memory because I don't think I'm getting this quite right. It was something to do with when someone reaches out and you book that first sort of call, what next? You're not sending them a big automated string of things. And I was hoping that maybe you could touch on that today, because I think this is also important for that authenticity piece.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing it up. So someone reaches out to me, I'll sometimes get email or something from my website. Hey, we saw your stuff. We have this event coming up. Can you let us know if you're available and what your fees are? And the response to that is usually, I'd love to, but can we jump on a call or a Zoom first? Because I'd really like to understand your theme, your audience, what your goals are for the event. And then we can talk about if my fees are going to fit within your budget. So I never want to just quote, but which seems, I sometimes struggle with it a little bit because I understand people are busy and they're just like, just give me the information, right? But I've had people come to me. I had a business come to me last year. The spouse had seen me present at an event. And the spouse had come home and said, oh my gosh, I just feel completely different about my job now. I was so stressed out before, and now I'm excited. You've got to hire this person. So the husband called me up and said, hey, I'm the Western Canadian manager for this big organization. We're doing this retreat for our leaders. And apparently I need to hire you for this keynote. And so I said, okay, let's have a conversation. By the time we finished, I said, I could do that keynote, but what I'm hearing you actually need is a half-day seminar on the following topics. And he's like, that would be amazing, right? And so it goes back to what Caryn and I and Steph, you've been saying about you're serving the client. You're trying to fulfill a need. And sometimes what people think they need isn't actually what they need. That actually comes up so often for me. I used to get calls all the time with people saying, oh, you do conflict management work with teams. Like, can you come in and do that? And I'd say, okay, tell me what's going on. And by the time I started to understand the dynamics in the workplace, I'd say, okay, sure, there's conflict, but there's these other things that are causing it, right? So it's just, again, about having this conversation where you're listening for what's actually happening. And for me, it's always what's the elephant in the room, because nobody wants to bring that up at first. But as soon as we can figure out what that is, there's this sense of relief about, oh, there's someone who can help me with this, right? And whether it's on a stage or consulting or facilitating or whatever, that's the goal, is to provide not the solution to the need, but a path forward, co-building the solution to the need, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And you can't do that if you don't have the conversation. So yeah, it's not an automatic reply of, here's my fees, like me or don't. It's, let's have a conversation and see what you actually need. And to that point, sorry, this is a long answer, but
that's great.
I've said no to people too. I've said, you know what I'm hearing you need is this. I'm not the best person to provide that for you, but I know some people who are. So to Caryn's point, these other speakers or these other consultants who would be ideal, can I introduce you?
Very nice.
I think that's such a good example of, again, you speaking to understand them, right? And people want a PDF, and a PDF sounds easier, but a PDF can lead you completely down the wrong track. So I feel the same way. I'm like, get on a call, talk to people, understand what they need, refer to other people, refer them to a different service you offer. I'm the same.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and that's interesting too, because I think, once it's in writing, there's an interpretation element. It's kind of like texting, how you don't quite sure what they're actually saying. It's a little bit like, I think that there's like a little bit of a misalignment there, because if you create the thing that's written, I think a lot of times we'll sort of
it takes too long.
Generify.
Yeah, you end up going back and forth so many times as opposed to having one clear conversation.
Yeah, because like Kimberly said, they often don't know what exactly, like they come into the conversation thinking that they need a certain thing. And I certainly see that with my clients, like coming into like a clarity call with me. They'll often say, well, my website's outdated. And then I can look at the website and go, well, this thing is broken. So maybe let's not just update the logo. Maybe you want to look at making it actually work to do the thing that you need it to do. But that's not a nice thing to hear in a written PDF.
Right.
And it's not supposed to, like, I think from my industry anyway, it can come across as a lot more judgy when it's been written. And I can put hours into editing the words to make them as the least possibly judgy, because I'm not trying to be judgy. But I think that conversation, like you said, it can really get into what that underlying thing might be, but it also allows you that mutual respect, because we've all been there. I think. So so I like that a lot. That's really, I just thought it was great because from Kimberly's perspective, or from Kimberly's story, that continued conversation and relationship doesn't get handed off to either maybe an assistant would be okay, like a person, like an assistant person, but it doesn't get handed off to like an email automation or whatever. And I think a lot of that is coming from that marketing language that we're still suffering from, which is that it has to be automated because you can, and you lose so much of that personal touch, the human touch. Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, I like that. So we are at the top of the hour. If there was so when I think about these things that you guys are saying, usually from where I sit in the industry, all of these visibility tools, all of these exposures, all of these experiences and places where you're putting yourself out there are leading, they're sending someone somewhere. Usually that somewhere is the website, or at least that's certainly been the case, up until this year. Is there something that either of you build in to your systems to either to bring in that website piece or to ensure that the website is still aligned with everything that you've been saying, like either on a podcast or in person? Like, it's really easy for something to evolve at a different rate. So I'm wondering if there's, like, how do you manage essentially all of these places where you're being visible?
Caryn?
I'm like, big question. One of the
It's a
things
big
that
question.
came up when you asked that, though,
And I didn't prepare it for you. I didn't prepare you guys for
it's
that one.
okay.
Yeah.
I think our website is one of the places where it can start to create drag for us in terms of sales and connection. So if you notice my website is far enough away from who I am today, it needs to get updated, then you're right, because it's holding you back from connecting and selling and sending people to it, which we want to be able to do because it's a great tool.
Yeah.
The other thing that comes to mind is, how there's like Linktree that you used to be able to put on Instagram or whatever, you can do links there. It's just having my own links page on my website so that I can keep it up to date. And it means that people land on my website and there's a chance they could go look at other things as opposed to sending them somewhere else. So I really like to think about, how do we bring everybody home? And the one home we own is our newsletter list and our website. We don't own anything else. So how do we get them all to be in one of those places to have the experience we want them to have?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, because that's the thing, right? We're in all of these different places, and sometimes we've been in a place and then we've moved off of it and maybe forgotten that it was there. Because that's certainly, like I said, there's like this huge housekeeping thing, and I find a lot of the work that we do, we specialize in doing rebuilds, and even with my own website, I can go back to that after a couple of years, look at the stats, and go, oh, that blog post has nothing to do with what I'm doing now.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And now you got to think about, what am I going to do with this? Do I want to rework it? Do I want to take it down? And then if I take it down, I have to track all of the things. So I think for folks that are not, because I'm a website girl, so I'm like, yeah, I love doing this. This is great, no problem. But it's not necessarily something that you want to be spending your own time doing. But everything these days, let's get into the AI a little bit. These AI tools are pulling information about you from a lot of different places. So how do you sort of try to ensure that these things are still aligned with what your authentic voice is?
I mean, are we there yet? Are you doing that? Am I doing that? Should I be doing that?
It's coming. Yeah. It's an interesting place, because the changes that are happening from a website perspective, or website marketing, digital marketing perspective is a little different than what it's been, but it's the same pressures that I was seeing, 10 or 15 years ago, when SEO was all changing and it's all about tactics.
But people are really able to deep dive us faster than ever, and AI can find everything. So, I mean, one of the things I did is I just deleted a whole bunch of stuff. Like I deleted like 16 pages of blogs from a decade of blogging that just were irrelevant. And I think, it takes a little bit of like, okay, I'm gonna throw everything in the trash can. But it's really useless and even harmful if it's not on point. So I think tidying is my answer.
Yeah. Marie Kondo. That's what I usually
spark some joy. Your blog should spark joy today.
Or at least answer whatever that question.
Yeah.
I had a very similar thing, because I used to have a blog that talked a lot about graphic design, because one of the things that I did when I first started was graphic design. And then when I stopped offering graphic design, I had to go through all of those and go, okay.
Yeah.
What am I saying? Yeah. But you know what? We've had occasions. I don't know if you track your stats, Caryn, but we've had scenarios where we rebuild a site and we unpublish the blog, and the traffic improves because you're not confusing people. Or search engines. Yeah, it's just sort of it's that housekeeping aspect that is super helpful. What would you say, Kimberly, as far as throwing you on the spot like I just did for both of you? as far, because I think what I'm getting at is that the online footprint, matters more than it used to.
Mhm.
So because it's about relationship building, it's interesting to try to figure out how to make those all come together. Do you have anything that came up when we were talking about that, Caryn?
It's so interesting because in the speaker world, we're very cognizant of AI being used for recommendations for speakers. Mm-hmm. And we all want to be recommended, right? Mm-hmm. And I told Steph, recently that someone did a thing where they were testing this out, and I was actually recommended as a speaker by one of the AI agents, not all of them, but one, and I'm thrilled. And really, for me, it's the website for me is a credibility piece. Like it's to Caryn's point, it's what I own. It's kind of the truth space. But honestly, when people are looking for speakers, they typically get recommendations from other people that have heard speakers, or from other speakers, or they go online and they look at YouTube or LinkedIn, right? And so for me, when I got into social media and posting, it was not what I enjoy. It's not my comfort zone, but I have to, because if people are going to hire a speaker, they're going to look for samples of you speaking. Mm-hmm. So for me, making sure that I'm posting 2 or 3 times a week is a critical piece. And then my website and whatever I'm posting have to align, and my LinkedIn profile. Like those are the things that have to really align. So honestly, I've rebuilt my website numerous times in the last few years, especially as I was changing my branding and figuring out what I was doing. And again, this process, Steph, with you, where you asked me some hard questions and we really talked through, like, what is it that you're saying? What do you want to do? Which was so helpful. Because then when I do go to post, again, what Caryn said earlier about, like, think about what it is you're going to say. I need to make sure that I'm doing something that relates back to what I say I am on my website and on my LinkedIn profile. So I don't know if that made sense, but it's just about being consistent, that wherever I show up, I'm speaking authentically. And that is a bonus for when you are just yourself. Like, you don't have to, what did I say last week? What was I trying to write? No. You're just speaking as yourself with your own authentic voice, but you're speaking about the topic or the theme that you say you are an expert in or that you want to get hired for. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that intentionality thing keeps coming through, like, it's, what are you doing there? And what is the goal of that thing? And it was like Caryn was saying earlier with these, it's like setting those expectations for what each specific thing is going to be used for. I find that by setting those boundaries and those guardrails and just saying no, for example, like on LinkedIn, this is what I'm doing. That actually, it provides a big relief for me, so that I stop trying so hard to be all of the things in one place. And I can say, no, this is what I'm doing there. And on this other thing, this is what I'm doing there. And here's how they connect and why I care about it. Because you're online and it's easy to do a lot. Like, I mean, it's easy. It's
sort
easy
of.
now. Sort of. Yeah, I know. But like with AI, like everybody's producing more faster, whether it's, the stuff that you wanted to be producing, or if it's, whatever, it's something else. But it's certainly possible to like put out a blog post in 30 seconds, or create a keynote, or come up with your podcast strategy, which is so funny because the next time you go to probably tell you something totally different on the same tool, give you different advice. But setting those guardrails and being really intentional is, for me, it certainly makes life easier, because then I don't spin out expect things.
And I think what's really important when you speak to that is, don't go in thinking, okay, if I post, if I have a podcast, if I go speaking, like, I'm going to get business, right? Because I think people think, okay, I'm putting this effort into doing these things, and therefore now I'm going to get sales. These, again, are all just pieces that people can see to get to know who you are and what you offer, get a sense of, right? And it's no different than, I don't want to say like other advertising, but people need to see it again and again and again and again before they get a comfort level with it. And then maybe when they need something, they might reach out to you, or they might think of you. But it's not that, okay, I'm going to do this really great post and now I'm going to get people calling me to book me. It doesn't work that way. So don't put that expectation on it, because it'll make it very stressful if you do, and very disappointing.
Yeah. And we're all very relational people. So you want to also be relational with your business. I don't want to be transactional with my business, saying, I did this, now you owe me that. Like, that's not
Yeah.
very fun.
Ew.
I did a
Makes
I
me
did a
cringe
podcast.
just hearing it.
Yeah, exactly. I did a podcast interview one time, and 6 years later, got a client from it.
Love it.
We don't know what's going to happen. It's not our job to set the expectation. It's our job to think with that intention. Here's what I'm here to do, and here's how I'm choosing to do it because I think this is what will work. It's not 1 + 1 is going to equal 2. It's hopefully 1 + 1 is going to equal 35, but not right away.
Yes.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I feel like this is tying a little bit into that passive income brain kind of marketing. Like we were all sold on in the last.
I'm like, I don't like that term.
Yeah, I know. But like, that whole like, oh, I'm going to build a course and it's just going to be like, I'll be like it's that overnight success thing again. But we
Money
have
while you
these
sleep.
we have these really high expectations of these things that are not meant to work in isolation. So like the podcast is a beautiful thing in addition, but it's not the only source of your marketing activity. Right? I mean, like it sounds to me like it's about relationship building and referrals and all of those sorts of things because you can't put all your eggs in one basket.
No, you just have to choose to have some baskets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they should look sort of the same or sound the same.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Okay, so we've got a little bit of time left, and it looks like a few people have dropped off. Is there anything? I want to make sure that each of you have a chance, and I didn't see any questions come through, so hopefully I'm not missing anything. But I'd like each of my guest speakers to do like a little reflective sort of a thing to help close us out. So one thing that you would tell your earlier self, one thing that you wish you'd understood earlier about using your voice the way that you've come to understand now. So Kimberly, if you could go first.
Yes. What I would tell myself is just relax and be you, which seems so simple, but it's the hardest advice in the world to take. When I first started speaking, I had a legitimate fear for several years that I would get halfway through my keynote and someone in the audience would jump up and yell, "Fraud, you're not a speaker." Oh, legitimate. And I remember my husband saying, "That is never going to happen, Kimberly." And I'm like, "No, you don't know, it might." Right. And so it's just this: trust yourself, trust your own voice, trust your experience, trust your stories. Just go out there and be real, because that's what people want. They want to connect with someone who's been through stuff like they have, who's trying to figure it out, cares about them, and who's giving them just a different way to think about life. And if you can trust yourself to share those things, not only are you helping people, but it's so empowering. Like you respect yourself, you love yourself more. It's just, life's a whole lot better when you can trust the person you are and give that to people.
Yeah, nice. Very nice. Caryn, what would you say as the one thing that you wish you'd understood earlier, if anything?
I mean, I think I'm still trying to understand it now.
Yeah.
And that is, say what makes you nervous. Not what terrifies you, but what you believe in and what makes you nervous. Because that's when, in all of my history, I've been the most magnetic in terms of bringing in opportunity. It's when I was saying what I actually cared about right now that's making me a little bit nervous to let everybody in on, but I know it matters.
Oh, that's neat. So like living in the discomfort a little bit?
Yeah, not so far out that I have to like lay in my bed for 2 days after, but like so that I'm like, I'm just gonna go take a walk after that, and like,
yeah, just
like that was like a little, I'm not naturally like, I'm usually the quiet person in the room. So for me, speaking is putting it out there, and it's not uncomfortable every time, but I think when I do it well, it is.
Mm-hmm. That's how you know it matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how you know it matters.
Yeah.
Oh, that's excellent. Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. That was absolutely what I was hoping for. So Caryn and Kimberly, thank you for joining me today. I'm going to make sure that the email that goes out will have links to both of you so that anybody watching either right now or the replay can follow your work. Just to wrap it up, the replay goes out to everybody who's registered. And then, so just one last thought. Everything that we've talked about today, podcasting, speaking, authentic voice usage, all of that, all of it has to send people somewhere that they're going to learn about you, that you're a single source of truth, or to verify what they've heard about you. Usually that is your website. It's worth making sure that when they get there, what they find matches the person that they just heard speaking. So that's the work that I do. I'm always happy to talk about it. So, and that's it for today. So thank you for joining us and take care.